bases, these kinds of things to give. What I think I'd like to see now is more peace mediation. You know, we need to find a way out, negotiation. So that's what I'd probably be flagging for right now.
But it feels like President Trump is turning this into a sort of virility test of NATO allies. He said today, just this afternoon, talking about NATO again, he says, I know we'll protect them. He goes on to say, if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us.
They will be. You have to remember that the Arctic, especially northern Finland, northern Sweden and northern Norway, is the key for protecting the United States. Why? Because most of Russia's nuclear weapons are up there in Murmansk and the Koala Peninsula. So, you know, if push comes to shove, of course, we are part of Article 5, collective defense, one for all for one. It's out of the question that we wouldn't support the U.S. And I think that's actually, it's very much in the interest of the U.S. as well to have allies and have NATO, because the biggest security threat that we have in Europe, unfortunately, is Russia, and that's what we're trying to contain inside the alliance.
The German Chancellor Merz has said that this is not a matter for NATO.
It's not Article 3, Article 4 or Article 5 of NATO, because that for us is about protecting ourselves in a situation. So what I've always said, that NATO is a defense alliance, it's a military alliance. It's not an alliance that attacks. That's the basic idea. When NATO 2.0 was sort of founded after the end of the Cold War, we went a lot into crisis management or peacekeeping, right? We did that in Kosovo, we did it in Afghanistan, and then there was always a UN mandate to do that. So that's fine. But this is not, you know, NATO per definition. This is very much the US and Israel.
It's interesting, actually. It's a point that was made by the General Sir Nick Carter, a former Chief of the Defence Staff here in the UK. Talking to the BBC, said that NATO is a defensive alliance. He said it wasn't designed for one of the allies to go on a war of choice and then oblige everyone else to follow. Is it that Donald Trump doesn't understand what NATO is?
No, I think what the President of the United States wants right now is support in a complicated situation. I don't think many expected Iran to counterattack the Gulf states, which are, of course, close allies of the United States. But right now, I feel that Iran is obviously fighting for its existence. That's why it's trying to, A, maximize the destruction in the region, and B, maximize the destruction for the global economy and the oil price. And this puts, I think, everyone involved in a difficult situation. That's why I think the best thing to do right now, instead of escalating, is to de-escalate, and then that would perhaps open the Hormuz Straits, which are what President Trump is looking for.
You're often described as a Trump whisperer. You seem to be closer to him than lots of leaders. How often do you speak to him? Is he on the phone? Is he texting, WhatsApping, voice noting?
No, I think my job as President of Finland is to have good relations with leaders around the world, and of course to have a relationship with the most powerful leader in the world is useful. Having said that, I don't want to inflate my role at all as any kind of a whisperer. If I can throw out one idea on the war of Ukraine out of 10 that he might hook onto, I'll be very happy. But he makes very much his own decisions.
You're listening to The Interview from the BBC World Service. Alexander Stubb, as President of Finland, is one of those world leaders who is interesting because he's managed to secure the thing that so many other world leaders have tried and failed, and that's a rapport with President Donald Trump. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, of course, is another one. Alexander Stubb bonded with Donald Trump on the golf course, but I was interested to know how far that relationship went, how they communicate, and his ability to have difficult conversations without cutting off that relationship altogether. So, OK, let's return to my conversation with Alexander Stubb. You play golf together, though, don't you?
We did, yes.
And how did you beat him? Were you allowed to beat him?
We played on the same team.
Oh, OK.
Yeah, one of the few players that shoots under his own age. Quite impressive.
So you think he's a good player?
I do.
I wondered, did you see any evidence of this idea that people have to let him win? Were you on the winning team when you played with him?
No, we were on the winning team, but no, we had a lot of fun. I remember that, I mean, for those of you who play golf, I mean, I used to play seriously, but I kind of quit cold turkey after college golf 35 years ago. And you see the personality of a human being kind of on the first hole. You see how they react to bad shots and good shots. And we had a very pleasant round.
And how does Donald Trump react to a bad shot?
Very calm. Much calmer than I am, you know.
And what about a few months ago, I went to the Finnish embassy here in London to experience sauna diplomacy, the sauna that you have in the embassy. Is that something that you've tried out with Donald Trump?
Not with Donald Trump, but, you know, I've had like a foreign policy sauna. We have this feature, Kultaranta Talks, at my summer residence, and I invite people to have a chat. But yeah, sauna is, I mean, it's the only international word that comes out of the Finnish language. So very, very, very proud of it. You know, we have 2.2 million saunas in Finland for 5.6 million people. That's quite a lot.
Would you invite Donald Trump to join you in one of them?
I can invite anyone to a sauna because it's a very soothing place. I believe in taking a sauna and then an ice bath. It kind of clears the mind.
Maybe that's what he needs, you know, cool heads all round.
You never know.
Do you have difficult conversations with President Trump?
I would say I do, yeah. I think in any relationship, obviously we're very different in public than we are in private as human beings, right? I mean, you as a journalist behave at home differently than you do in front of the camera, right?
That's true.
So, and then also you build a relationship of trust. And once you reach a certain point of trust, then you can be a little bit tougher on things that you disagree. But you kind of have to pick your battles. I think that's the key. But I feel that I've been able to be quite frank with the president, among others.
Earlier this year, Trump said that NATO sent some troops but stayed a little back, a little off the front lines in Afghanistan. Of course, two Finnish soldiers were among those who were killed in Afghanistan. Was that one of the difficult conversations you had to have with him?
I think that conversation has been more difficult with the Danes, who had over 40 soldiers dying. And Denmark has been a very close ally of the United States over the years. And of course, many of us, we weren't even NATO members, but we had troops in Afghanistan for many years in rotation. Of course, it's good training, but they were certainly in Mar al-Sharif. I visited the place myself, very much in the front lines. I would not have had the courage myself to be there for too long, but our soldiers did.
And is that something you spoke to President Trump about?
We speak about alliance, but I think my value added is to tell the strength of the Finnish military for the alliance. And, you know, I know that even the viewers of BBC don't always look at the intricacies of the Finnish military, but we still have conscription, so obligatory military service for men and then voluntary for women. We have over 1 million men and women who've been trained in the military service. We have over 60 F-18s. We just bought 64 F-35s. We have long-range missiles, air, land, and sea. We have the biggest artillery together in Europe, together with Poland. And as I always say, we don't have them because we're worried about Sweden.
It's because you're worried about Russia and this, the scale of the border you're talking about. Is that, as President of Finland, what keeps you up at night?
No, I think we're quite actually cool, calm, and collected when it comes to it, because our whole defense posture has been created in a post-World War II world, and then in the post-Cold War period, we kept our military up. So we have the capabilities. And, you know, I look at our overall comprehensive security. As president, I'm the one who probably has most information about our security of supply, our capacity in cyber, our capacity in space, land, air, and sea, our border capacity. And I sleep my nights actually quite calmly. We've always had a good relationship with Russia as well. You know, we are trustworthy. So in that sense, even if we join NATO, I don't think Russia sees us as a target.
It's not something, I mean, clearly other countries who share borders with Russia aren't concerned about a Russian invasion, bluntly. Is that something that concerns you in Finland? No,
I think, no, we don't. I mean, we don't see an imminent security threat from Russia, but we do see a long-term threat, depending, of course, on how the war in Ukraine ends. But I think, having spoken to many colleagues over the years, I think the bigger worries are not so much of NATO states, because Article 5 is solid. But there are countries who are bordering Russia, say in Central Asia, who are worried about, you know, Russian expansion and imperialism. But what I keep on stressing is that